I started a viral TikTok exposing toxic families after mine destroyed me. Now my brother, ex-husband, and grandparents are furious. 12 million followers know exactly who the narcissist family really is. Welcome back, family. If you haven't already, subscribe and say hi in the comments. We'd love to know where you're watching from. With that, let's continue today's story. The notification glowed on my phone at 2:47 a.m. Your ex-husband Elijah tagged you in a post. My hands trembled as I opened it. There, on his Instagram with 50,000 followers, was our old wedding photo with a caption that made my stomach drop. When you realize you dodged a bullet. Some women just can't handle real family values. Glad I upgraded. The comments section exploded with heart emojis and congratulations on his engagement to someone new. Someone younger. Someone my brother Darnell introduced him to 3 weeks after our divorce. I sat in my cramped studio apartment, walls still bare after 6 months, and something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked open. Because underneath that caption was the real story he'd never tell. The story of how my own family helped him drain our joint account. How my mother Linda stood as a witness when he filed for divorce, claiming I was mentally unstable because I'd started therapy. How my grandmother Evelyn told the judge I was an unfit wife because I'd questioned why Elijah needed access to my inheritance from my late father. 3 years of marriage and I'd lost everything. My savings, my home, my self-respect. But Elijah had gained something precious. My family's unwavering support in destroying me. They'd chosen him. Blood meant nothing when narcissism ran deeper. My phone buzzed again. Another comment. She was always dramatic. Elijah deserves better. It was from my Aunt Patricia. That's when I downloaded TikTok. That's when I decided silence would no longer protect people who'd weaponized my love against me. That's when everything changed. My first TikTok was shaky, filmed in my bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., eyes swollen from crying. I didn't plan it. The words just poured out like poison I'd been holding in my throat for years. Story time. How my family helped my ex-husband steal $53,000 and gaslit me into thinking I was the problem. My voice cracked on the word family, but I kept going. I told them about the joint account Elijah and I opened for our future children. How my mother convinced me to add his name to my father's inheritance as a show of faith. I hit post before I could overthink it. 16 views in the first hour. Then 50. By morning, 12,000 people had watched me unravel the first thread of betrayal. The comments flooded in. This happened to me. Your mother did what? Please make a part 2. I sat there reading every single one, realizing I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was a survivor of systematic financial and emotional abuse, co-signed by the people who were supposed to protect me. Part 2 came that evening. I detailed the family meeting where my grandfather Jerome and grandmother Evelyn sat me down to explain that Elijah deserved the money more than I did because he's the man of the house. How my brother Darnell laughed when I cried, calling me a spoiled princess who never learned to share. The video exploded, 50,000 views in 12 hours. Messages poured into my inbox from people sharing their own stories of family betrayal. But one message stood out. It was from Shanice, Elijah's sister. Girl, you don't even know the half of it. Call me. My hands shook as I read it. What else was there? Shanice and I met at a coffee shop downtown on a Wednesday afternoon. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd lost weight, cut her hair short, and had this haunted look in her eyes I recognized from my own mirror. Thank you for posting those videos, she said before I could even sit down. I've been waiting for someone to expose them. My heart pounded. Expose who? Elijah. She laughed bitterly. Elijah, your brother, your mother. All of them. They've been running this scheme for years, Nadia. You're just the latest victim. The coffee in front of me went cold as Shanice unfolded the conspiracy. Elijah had done this before. Married a woman from a good family, isolated her, drained her resources, then moved on with help from his enablers. My brother Darnell was his business partner in a luxury car rental scam that targeted vulnerable women. They'd identify targets at upscale events. Elijah would charm them and Darnell would provide the family credibility. Your mother knew, Shanice whispered. She's been getting kickbacks since 2019. I felt my reality shift beneath me. Why are you telling me this? Shanice pulled out her phone, scrolling through screenshots, bank statements, text message threads. Because he did it to me first. Elijah and I aren't really siblings, we're ex-spouses. And your family helped him destroy me 2-3 years before you. My hands trembled as I looked through the evidence. Messages between Elijah and Darnell laughing about mark number 3. Photos of my mother at restaurants with Elijah, dated during our marriage when she claimed she couldn't stand him. The betrayal had roots deeper than I'd imagined. I filmed my next video in my car, hands shaking so badly I had to prop the phone against my dashboard. Update. I just met with someone who exposed a 3-year conspiracy involving my ex, my brother, and my mother. The video went viral within hours. 200,000 views by midnight. My phone exploded with messages, some supportive, many vicious. My cousin Tamika commented, "You're going to regret this, Nadia. Family business stays in the family." But I was past caring about their twisted definition of loyalty. Shanice and I spent the next week building a timeline. Elijah married her in 2018. Her family, like mine, was comfortable. Her late grandfather had left her a modest inheritance and a small property portfolio. Within 18 months, Elijah had convinced her to consolidate everything into joint accounts for tax purposes. When she finally questioned the disappearing funds, her family turned on her. They called her paranoid, ungrateful, a bad wife. Sound familiar? The pattern was sickeningly clear. Elijah specifically targeted women who'd recently lost a parent. We were vulnerable, grieving, desperate for family connection. He'd ingratiate himself with our remaining family members, slowly turning them against us. Darnell provided the respectable family man image, the successful brother-in-law who vouched for Elijah's character. My mother played the concerned parent, worried about our emotional instability. Together they created a narrative where we were the problem, not the victims. What broke me was discovering my grandmother Evelyn's role. She'd been the one introducing Elijah to grieving families at church, positioning him as a godly man seeking a wife. He was the recruiter. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a criminal enterprise wearing a family's face. My TikTok following exploded overnight, from 20,000 to 500,000 in 72 hours. Each video I posted dissecting the manipulation tactics brought thousands more viewers. People weren't just watching for entertainment. They were studying the playbook to protect themselves. Comments poured in. My brother did this to me. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for giving me words for what happened. The validation was overwhelming. For the first time in 3 years I felt seen. I felt believed. I felt powerful. But with visibility came consequences. My mother Linda called at 6 a.m., screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You're destroying this family. Do you know what people are saying about us at church? About your grandmother? You're making us all look like criminals. I let her rant for 3 minutes before responding calmly. You are criminals, Mama. You helped steal $53,000 from your own daughter. That's called theft and conspiracy. The line went silent. Then she said something that chilled my blood. If you don't delete those videos by tonight, you'll regret it, Nadia. I promise you that. I posted the threatening voicemail recording. It went viral with 2 million views in 6 hours. The comments section exploded. Call the police. This is witness intimidation. Your mother just confessed. But what happened next blindsided me. My grandfather Jerome showed up at my apartment building, waiting in the parking lot at 11 p.m. He looked older than I remembered, frighlier. When he saw me, he started crying. Please, Nadia. Please stop. You're killing your grandmother. She's in the hospital with chest pains because of the stress. For a moment, guilt flickered. Then I remembered her introducing Elijah to me at a church potluck, her hand on his shoulder, her voice honey-sweet. This young man has been asking about you. I went to the hospital against every instinct screaming at me to stay away. Grandmother Evelyn was in room 342 surrounded by family. My mother, my uncle Raymond, my cousin Tamika, and surprisingly, Elijah. They all turned when I walked in and the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. You have some nerve showing your face here, my mother hissed. But grandmother Evelyn held up a trembling hand, silencing everyone. Her voice was weak but clear. "Come here, child. Let me talk to my granddaughter." The family reluctantly stepped outside, leaving us alone. I approached her bedside cautiously, waiting for another manipulation. "You think you're so smart, don't you?" she whispered, her voice suddenly stronger. "Posting those videos, getting all those strangers on your side. But you don't understand how the world works, Nadia. Women like us, we survive by aligning with strong men. Your grandfather, your father before he died, Elijah, they provide structure, protection. You were always too independent, too stubborn. I was trying to teach you survival." I stared at this woman who'd braided my hair as a child, who'd taught me to pray, who'd betrayed me for money. "You taught me that family means nothing when greed is involved," I replied quietly. Her eyes flashed with something ugly. "Those videos stop today or I'll make sure everyone knows about your mental health history. The psychiatrist visits, the medication, the time you were hospitalized for exhaustion. I'll paint you as an unstable liar and people will believe me." My blood ran cold. That hospitalization happened after my father died. I'd had a breakdown from grief. She was threatening to weaponize my trauma. "Do it," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Post it all. Because I'm done being silent to protect people who've never protected me." I walked out of that hospital room and went straight to my car. My next video was filmed in my car, tears streaming down my face, voice raw with emotion. My grandmother just threatened to publicly expose my mental health history if I don't delete my content. So let me save her the trouble. Yes, I was hospitalized after my father died. Yes, I took medication for depression. Yes, I had a breakdown. And you know what made it worse? My family using my grief to manipulate me into a marriage that destroyed me financially. That video hit 12 million views in 24 hours. The outpouring of support was staggering. Thousands of people shared their own mental health struggles and stories of family exploitation during vulnerable times. But more importantly, people started coming forward with information. A woman named Crystal messaged me, "I worked at the bank where your ex and brother had accounts. I was fired for flagging suspicious transfers. I have records." Another message from Devon, a former friend of Darnell's, "I know where the money went. I can prove everything." Suddenly, I had witnesses, evidence, a paper trail that could potentially lead to criminal charges. Shanice connected me with a lawyer she'd consulted years ago but couldn't afford. This time we pooled resources. The lawyer, Michelle Rodriguez, was a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in financial abuse cases. She reviewed our evidence over 3 days and delivered her verdict. "You have enough for a civil suit, possibly criminal charges for fraud and conspiracy. But Nadia, you need to be prepared. This will get uglier before it gets better. Your family will fight back hard." I nodded. I'd already lost everything that mattered. What else could they take? My phone buzzed with a text from my brother Darnell. "You just started a war you can't win, little sis. Watch your back." My follower count hit 3 million when mainstream media picked up the story. Local news stations requested interviews. National podcasts wanted me on their shows. "Woman exposes family fraud on TikTok, gains millions of supporters," read one headline. My face was everywhere, and with that visibility came intense scrutiny. People dug through my old social media posts looking for inconsistencies. Trolls created fake accounts claiming I was lying. Someone leaked my address, forcing me to stay with Shanice for safety. The pressure was suffocating, but the alternative, silence, was worse. I'd rather be destroyed telling the truth than survive protecting lies. The most devastating betrayal came from my childhood best friend, Keisha. We'd grown up together, shared everything, promised to be each other's bridesmaids. She posted a long Instagram statement. "I've known Nadia since we were 6 and I'm heartbroken to say this, but she's always been manipulative and attention-seeking. Her family has done nothing but love her and she's repaying them with lies for internet fame. Elijah is a good man who deserves better." The comments under her post were vicious, celebrating her for exposing the truth. I read every word, feeling that old wound of betrayal reopen. Later, I'd discover Elijah had been sleeping with Keisha since before our divorce. She was protecting her own interests. But for every person who turned against me, 10 more stood beside me. My comment sections became support groups. Women shared stories of escaping similar situations. Financial advisors offered free consultations to my followers about protecting assets. Therapists provided resources for healing from family trauma. What started as my personal pain had become a movement. The narcissist family wasn't just my story anymore. It was a mirror reflecting thousands of untold stories of familial abuse. And that terrified my family more than anything because the truth was contagious. Michelle filed the lawsuit on a rainy Thursday morning. Nadia Richardson versus Elijah Thompson, Darnell Richardson and Linda Richardson for fraud, conspiracy and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The local courthouse filing became public record, and my followers found it within hours. "She's really doing it," the comments celebrated. "She's taking them to court." The reality was less glamorous than social media made it seem. Legal battles are slow, expensive, and emotionally draining. Every document I had to provide, every deposition I had to give, meant reliving the trauma in excruciating detail. But I was committed. This was about more than money, it was about accountability. My family's response was swift and vicious. They hired an expensive attorney who immediately filed a countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. Their legal strategy became clear in the first hearing. Paint me as a mentally unstable woman with a persecution complex, destroying innocent family members for social media clout. My mother took the stand during a preliminary hearing, tears streaming down her face, testifying about her troubled daughter, who'd always had a flair for drama. The judge looked at me with something like pity. I wanted to scream, but Michelle squeezed my hand under the table. "Let them talk," she whispered. "We have evidence. They have theatrics." The turning point came when Crystal, the former bank teller, testified. She brought years of flagged transaction reports showing systematic transfers from my accounts to shell companies owned by Darnell and Elijah. She had emails from her supervisor telling her to ignore the red flags because those are important clients with connections. She had recorded phone calls where Darnell threatened her job if she continued investigating. The courtroom went silent as she presented document after document. I watched my brother's face drain of color. My mother wouldn't look at me. Elijah whispered urgently to his lawyer. While the legal case progressed, my TikTok platform grew to 8 million followers. I posted daily updates on the court proceedings, carefully avoiding anything that could jeopardize the case. But I also expanded my content, educating people about financial abuse, narcissistic family systems and trauma bonding. Mental health professionals began collaborating with me, offering expert insights. The narcissist family became shorthand for any toxic family dynamic that prioritized appearance over truth. My comment section was a constant stream of, "This is my family. You're describing my mother exactly. How do I escape?" One video struck a particular nerve. I talked about the moment I realized my family's love was conditional. When I needed them most after losing my father, they were plotting how to exploit my grief. "Real family doesn't have a price tag," I said directly to the camera. "Real love doesn't come with financial strings or loyalty tests. If your family only supports you when you're profitable or compliant, they're not your family. They're your abusers wearing familiar faces." That video got 23 million views. It was reshared across platforms. Celebrities commented. News outlets quoted it in articles about financial abuse awareness. But success brought new dangers. I started receiving death threats, not just online but at my temporary address. Someone spray-painted "liar" across my car. A brick came through Shanice's window with a note, "Stop talking or else." We filed police reports, but they were non-committal. "Probably just internet trolls," one officer said dismissively. The threats escalated when an anonymous account posted, "Nadia Richardson thinks she's safe. She's not. Neither is that fake sister-in-law helping her." I knew that writing style. My Uncle Raymond, the family enforcer, always called people fake when they told the truth. The police finally assigned us a detective after that. At 10 million followers, a message request appeared from someone I never expected. My father's younger brother, Uncle Elijah. Yes, I married a man with my uncle's name, which should have been red flag number 1. He lived in another state, had been estranged from the family for 15 years after a dispute I never fully understood. Your grandmother and mother destroyed my life too, his message read. I have information about the life insurance policy from your father's death. The beneficiary was changed 3 weeks before he died. You need to know this. My hands shook so violently I could barely type a response. We spoke on the phone that night for 4 hours. Uncle Elijah told me everything my family had hidden. My father hadn't died of natural causes from a heart attack like they'd claimed. He'd been under enormous stress from discovering my mother and grandfather's embezzlement from his business. He'd planned to divorce my mother and remove her from his will. 3 weeks later he was dead. The official cause was cardiac arrest, but Uncle Elijah always suspected something darker. The life insurance policy worth $400,000 had been changed from benefiting me to benefiting my mother, a change my father supposedly made while critically stressed, according to documents my grandfather Jerome had witnessed. I couldn't prove anything 15 years ago, Uncle Elijah explained, his voice heavy with regret. I was younger, had fewer resources, and they isolated me from the family before I could investigate. But Nadia, with your platform and evidence, we might finally get justice for your father. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. Everything I thought I knew about my father's death was potentially a lie. The grief I'd been manipulated through might have been caused by the same people who'd exploited it. My next video, filmed with tears blurring my vision, exposed this new revelation. The response was overwhelming. Private investigators reached out offering services, legal experts weighed in, and most importantly, people who'd attended my father's funeral started coming forward with their own suspicions. The civil trial became a media sensation. Cameras weren't allowed in the courtroom, but I live tweeted the proceedings and news outlets covered every development. Michelle was brilliant. She systematically dismantled every defense my family offered. Shell companies were traced. Forged documents were exposed. Crystal's testimony about the bank's complicity was damning. But the moment that broke the case wide open was when Shanice took the stand and revealed she'd been recording conversations with Elijah and Darnell for 3 years, including detailed discussions about targeting me specifically because of my inheritance and desperate need for family approval after my father died. The courtroom gasped when those recordings played. Elijah's voice, cold and calculating, Nadia's perfect. Still grieving, isolated, and desperate to prove she's not broken. Her family will sell her out for 20%. Darnell laughing, Mama already laid the groundwork. She thinks Elijah is her savior. My mother's voice, dismissive, she's always been weak. This will be easy. I sat there listening to them dissect my pain like a business opportunity, and something inside me finally, completely died, not in a bad way but in a liberating way. The last thread of hope that maybe somehow they'd loved me even a little snapped. I was free. If you've watched this journey from the beginning, comment, I believe survivors below. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Elijah, Darnell, and my mother were liable for fraud and conspiracy. I was awarded $187,000 in damages, but more importantly, the judge referred the case to the prosecutor's office for potential criminal charges. My mother sobbed in the courtroom. Darnell stared at me with pure hatred. Elijah remained expressionless, already calculating his next move. My grandfather and grandmother, who'd been present every day, looked like they'd aged decades. As we left the courthouse, protesters and supporters lined the street holding signs, Justice for Nadia, Toxic Families Exposed, 12 million strong. 3 months after the trial, my TikTok following reached 12 million. My family's criminal trial was scheduled for next year. The prosecutor found enough evidence to charge all 3 with multiple counts of fraud and conspiracy. Uncle Elijah and I worked with investigators to reopen the inquiry into my father's death. New evidence suggested his medication had been tampered with in the weeks before his cardiac arrest. My grandmother Evelyn suffered a severe stroke and was placed in a care facility. My grandfather Jerome sent me one letter. You destroyed this family, Nadia. I hope you're proud. I burned it without finishing. But victory tasted like ash in my mouth. Yes, I'd exposed the truth. Yes, I'd built a platform helping thousands of people recognize and escape toxic family dynamics. Yes, I'd gotten legal justice. But I'd also lost every single person I'd grown up calling family. Holidays were silent. My phone no longer rang with calls from anyone sharing my blood. I sat in my new apartment, bought with money from sponsorships and speaking engagements about family trauma, surrounded by success and completely alone. Shanice visited often, becoming the sister I'd never had. My followers sent messages of support daily. But late at night I still cried for the family I'd wanted them to be, not the family they were. The saddest truth I learned was this. Sometimes protecting yourself means losing people you love. Sometimes justice doesn't heal you, it just stops the bleeding. I'd started this journey hoping to expose toxic family dynamics and maybe get my money back. I'd ended it with millions of supporters, legal vindication, and a hole in my heart that would never fully close. My father's case remained open, the investigation ongoing. My family members awaited trial, their reputations destroyed, their relationships fractured beyond repair. Me. I was free, validated, believed, and utterly, devastatingly alone. The narcissist family had finally been exposed. 12 million people knew exactly who they really were. But knowledge didn't bring my father back. Justice didn't give me a family that loved me unconditionally. Truth didn't erase the years of manipulation and betrayal. I created a final TikTok video, my last post in the series. This is where my story ends for now. I won in court, but I lost my family. Maybe that's the trade-off for truth. Thank you for believing me when my own blood wouldn't. If you're in a toxic family situation, remember, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. And sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. I hit post, closed the app, and looked out my window at the city lights below, wondering if freedom was supposed to feel this heavy, this painful, this lonely. The answer, I realized, was yes. Because real freedom, freedom from people who hurt you even when you love them, always costs everything. And I'd paid that price willingly, knowing I'd do it all again to reclaim my truth, my voice, my life. Even if it meant standing alone. Especially if it meant standing alone. Because for the first time in 32 years I finally, truly stood. If this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with someone who might need to hear that their truth matters. Drop a comment about your own journey. I read every single one. Remember, your story is valid, your pain is real, and you deserve people who celebrate you, not exploit you. Thank you for being here.